Welcome to Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring world-class leaders to share the hard-learned lessons on their journey navigating wartime. These are very special times. A lot of companies are scaling up, but many companies are managing wartime, adjusting and preparing to be stronger. I'm Mary Menezes, your host, and today we have a very special guest to help navigate wartime and to share her perspective and experience as a female leader. I'm honored to host Marta Carvalho Araújo, CEO of Castelbel. Marta, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let us know more about yourself, your life and career journey.
Well, it's not like it's been a really long journey in any case, but so I'm 38. I'm the CEO of Castelbel. It all began. Well, I was born in a small town next to the border with Spain. And me and my two siblings, we studied there preparing to leave, which is pretty much what happens to people who are born and raised in small towns and in inland Portugal. So what happened to us was that we went to college in Porto. And the two of them, they went to medical school, whereas I went to sciences. So I went to chemistry. So what I did, I graduated from chemistry, and then I got a PhD in chemistry, and then I started working for Castelbel, which is the company that I am running right now.
Wow, great. I read that Castelbel sell happiness.
True.
How is that? And very important this time.
Sure, absolutely. People really need happiness desperately right now. So what we do is that we manufacture fragrance products. So we're talking about lotions, gels, creams, but we're also talking about home fragrances in the sense of diffusers, candles, drawer liners, and room sprays. So we're talking about fragrance gifts because they are conceived with such care and they're designed with such love that we consider them gifts. But it's not just us, actually. It's the consumer, it's the customers that see the products that we make as a gift, either for themselves or for giving to their loved ones.
Wow, such a great idea for mothers of Mother Day.
Oh, Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever. Every day is special when you can actually give something that makes the other person happy, which is what we try to then do every day.
And well, about this global crisis that is a real superhero training, at Scaleup Valley, we believe there are three critical ingredients to navigate wartime and get back to scale after war. One, radical focus, world-class leadership, and the culture of execution. The number one, radical focus. How you define the critical priorities during these uncertain times with your leadership team?
Well, focus is important at any time. It's not just when you have a crisis, actually. But I would say that probably when you mention this right now, specifically for this time, is because people now, they are divided between different kinds of people and circumstance drawing them into things. As in, if you're at home and if you're doing remote work and you're surrounded by a family and you get asked lots of things at the same time that you have to work, well, it may be more difficult to keep your focus. I would assume that that's pretty much the kind of focus that you mean. But actually, this is something that right now I see as the only advantage that you can find in actually getting a decrease of the pace of doing business right now, because of course, as you can imagine, everything slows down when you have this kind of environment, is exactly that you can actually focus more on things, and you can think more because you have more time to think. Yeah? So what happens to me, for instance, right now is that because there's less interaction, there's less people calling, there's less ringing, there's less emailing, there's less of all of that, I can actually focus more on the task that is guaranteeing the survival of the company, and the keep running, and the team keeping happy, and everybody remaining productive. So whereas you would think that because of all the distractions of the family or of staying at home would make it more difficult, I actually think that the fact that the rest of the distractions that are no longer there makes it easier to focus.
And how do you keep that good, positive energy, calm to you and to your team?
Well, actually, that's something that I believe that it can be trained, but I believe that it's also born with you. It's something that you either have or you don't, pretty much. And in my case, I believe that I was blessed with that. It's I can keep calm in stressful times, and this is something that has been helping me for a long time now. Because of course, never like nowadays, because nowadays it's a really, really stressful circumstance that you have to deal with. But you have problems all the time, your life long. It's not something that all the problems landed on you just now. It's like we are problem solvers all our life, and we have to deal with stress and pressure, and we have to deal with timings, and we have to deal with having to deliver regardless of everything else. And so that's why I believe that a good humor is essential. I believe that you have to remain calm to transmit that tranquility to the people around you, and that people can think better if they're not too stressed out. They need to, just think about it in a way that the only goal that you have is to sort it out. Don't ignore the rest. It's just, okay, there's a problem, I need to sort it out. That's what it is.
Wow. And related with that, in world-class leadership, um, yes, peace and wartime executives need to have similar strategies, but they have different personalities, and they can develop skills. What skills do you think that a leader it's important to have in these times?
Well, again, if you think about, if you compare the wartime with the peacetime, and if you think that the skill set is completely different, well, my opinion is it's that it's not that different. It's just that the companies that do well in times of peace are not that different from the companies that do well in times of war, or really well. Not just the ones that do well, but the ones that do really well are the ones that are trained to do both things. Okay, and even when you think that everything's super peaceful, you will do better if you behave as if it weren't. So, and a good example of that is, you remember that Sun Tzu book, The Art of War? Actually, that is not really a guide for war, or it was written to be one, but it's meant to be used in times of peace. So the strategies that you need to use in times of war are quite handy in times of peace too. So it's not as if I think that you need to be more empathetic now. You always need to be empathetic. Now, one thing that may make a very big difference is that resilience, and that keeping it together and keeping calm. That is, of course, a lot more important, because you're not being tested in peace times. You only get tested towards that in war times. But I believe that throughout your career, you will always find, with pandemics or without pandemics, you will always find stressful times. So summarizing things like trying to put yourself in the shoes of someone else, being empathetic, remaining an understanding person, and keeping it simple, and being, and the focus that you mentioned. Of course, you need to keep focused. You cannot get distracted with everything that with the next shiny thing. And you have to deal with uncertainty, and at the same time that you need to show off your confidence, you also should be showing off your vulnerability, because people relate to that. You do not have to look like a superhero to manage or to lead something. Actually, people will get along better with your team strategy, and they will cooperate more if they can relate to you. So behaving like a superwoman is not really going to help. It's like you need to keep your connection to people.
And about the cultural of execution, what teams meeting routines are serving the best to assure that everyone is up to date and on the same page?
You mean like video conferencing and things like that?
Yes, usually you have in maybe
Sure.
weekly or bi-weekly, in person.
Well, what I think is that, again, what you need to do is you need to do pretty much the same things that you would do in normal times. Sorry. Just having to deal with the physical distance. So you adapt to the physical distance. It's not like you do an entirely different thing because you're away. So what I mean is, why would you have a video conference to deal with things that if you were here all together in the office, you wouldn't have a physical meeting to do? Meaning, if the normal thing is to write an email, why would you replace that by a video conference? You wouldn't. I mean, if the normal thing is to have an internal call to ask something, you don't need a Zoom call to replace the internal phone call. You just call them on your mobile. So you just migrate to the virtual world the things that you would do in a similar way physically. So if you don't have meetings, if in your daily life, normal, regular, without the pandemics, if you don't waste your time with long meetings, then now you shouldn't waste your time with long meetings. So don't force it, don't push it onto people. Why would you have a meeting with 10 people simultaneously if in regular times in the office you would have it with 2 or 3? You don't need that. You don't need that. So to keep productive, try to think about what would I do in normal times, and then just adjust it to the circumstance you have. But don't change it altogether, because everything's changing already. Why would you change that too? Just try and keep it rational. Keep it rational and simple.
But usually, what is the cadence, the best practice that you have with your team?
We have, sorry, I didn't finish that. So basically, when we have meetings with the sales team, if we have a daily meeting, we now have the same daily meeting, just using Zoom instead of being in a room and talking to each other. Imagine the design team. If the design team starts their day by having a coffee at the common room, then they should start their day by having a virtual meeting where they're having coffee, each of them at their home, just chatting. So that's what I mean by replacing but keeping the same routine. Replacing the medium but keeping the same routine. So same cadency, same. If we have board meetings once a month, we keep having board meetings once a month. If we have executive board meetings twice a month, we will still have those. So that's why I'm saying it's not that difficult, actually, if you just keep your routine.
And for instance, your monthly or quarterly, do you have an all hands team?
Do I have a?
With our all company? The quarterly or annually?
Okay. No, we have every month. We have what we call the cross-department meeting. So it's the person in charge of each department all of us meet and we talk to each other about this. Actually, in this particular case, we did something different. We realized that having 12 people simultaneously on a video call is not that productive. And so what we're doing now is that we're trying to cut things in chunks. And instead of having everyone at the same time talking about everything, we just do it in a segmented way. And we talk more about financial with the finance guys and design with the design guys. And now we are segmenting a bit more because of that kind of restriction, which is it gets too messy. When you have too many people in a Zoom conference, it gets too complicated and everybody wants to talk at the same time and it's odd. And then also on video conferencing, you kind of exponentiate the things that are already the personal characteristics. So those who don't speak regularly will speak even less, and those that speak too much will speak even more, and you have to get things under control, and it's a bit more difficult.
Wow, I read something that when you start the role as a CEO, you have that goal and you have to define how to achieve that goal or vision. How that work for you as a leader?
Well, it was actually not that difficult because we have a really, really good team. And this may sound as a common thing to say, but actually, in our particular case, we have a lot of people in the team that are super well trained and that know exactly what they're doing. And because of that, it's easy to delegate onto those people and to trust them and to really believe that things will get achieved. And this is what's been happening here. It's not as if all the knowledge landed on one person and that person has to control everything. It's pretty much the opposite. It's people here have their own expertise, and besides that, they have a wider view of things. So my role, of course, is to have the big picture, but even within the smaller pictures, they have also a conscience of what's the overall thing. So it's quite easy to coordinate when there's a culture that is that strong, and when people really feel motivated, and it's been easy. Now, that is exactly where the thing of the theme of war comes in. It's been easy to motivate people so far because things have been going well so far. So we've always had good results. So since the beginning of the company, we never decreased our turnover, which surely is not going to happen this year, unfortunately,
Yes,
for anybody.
congrats.
For anybody.
Yes.
So it's been easy to deal with a team where things go well. It's been easy. So this is going to be the probation year. This is going to be the difficult year, is when things are not going to go as well, and you still need to keep everyone together and working towards the same goal. So that is why I am even more concentrated and motivated towards keeping calm and trying to gather everyone together and making sure that nobody feels left aside. And this is the kind of things that technical competence, it's there. It's like it's a given. So I don't need to worry about that. They know what they're doing. So now is the time to actually coordinate in a different kind of way, which is pretty much just, guys, it's not going to be a great year. We know it. Okay, so that, check. Everybody knows that. So from there, that is our starting point. From there, we need to see what it is that we can do. We need to plan. We need to study. We need to do all sorts of scenarios. We need to then execute on those. But actually, the planning, the diagnosing, all of that is the most important thing to do right now. Even though, of course, nobody can control anything, and it's not like it's easy to figure out. Of course it's not. Nobody knows what will happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But that's where the diagnosing and the scenarioing and all of that gets important.
And how you balance your intuition and what the numbers are telling
Well, numbers are numbers.
you.
Numbers have a very big strength here, and they usually say that what you can't measure doesn't exist. So basically, uh, numbers show you the reality, but they don't really show you the future. They show you the past. So this is where intuition becomes important, especially at a time where no prediction can be made. It's just like uh, you can look at what happened in the past, and then you can try to project that into the future. But that would be a regular future, a future that would emulate what happened in the past, which is exactly the opposite of what we have today. We have no clue of what's going to happen. And this is probably the time where intuition is the most important.
And also when you have innovation, the innovation part of the business,
Sure.
maybe.
Innovation has to happen all the time. It's, of course, it's never, in our case, it's never going to be disruptive innovation. It's always going to be incremental innovation. It's not like we just figured everything out and now we created a brand new product nobody else in the world has ever done. That doesn't really happen. It's like the things that you do is you just grab something that has been done in a different field or different industry and you just adapt that to your own. And this is something that we have been quite good at doing. And this is what we will keep doing, of course. Now, I understand that in some industries, innovation is going to get harder in the near future because of funding. Whereas in other industries like healthcare and immunology, virology, public health, those are probably going to get a lot of funding within the next 1-2 years, at least while people don't forget that what happened. Because usually memory is short, and usually if you have an issue, a problem, like you get a pump of money into that problem, and then as soon as the problem fades away, people forget it and they just ignore it and they stop funding it, which is kind of crazy, but it is what it
is. And our favorite questions.
Oh,
the last one.
Nice.
What advice would you give to your younger self if you had opportunity to meet Marta 8 years behind?
Oh, okay. What would I tell myself? I would say that probably 8 years ago, I didn't have that kind of bigger picture that I was telling you about earlier on. It's try and see the whole thing at the same time. And not just that, you having the bigger picture, meaning you conveying that bigger picture to the people around you that cannot have it themselves. Meaning, if you actually see what's going on around you, then it's your responsibility to transmit that to the people who actually are not in a position to see the whole thing. And by this, I mean that you shouldn't focus on detail too much. You shouldn't criticize too much the small things, and you should actually try to motivate and putting all the pieces together towards seeing the big thing. And in personal terms, what this means is suffering too much. And to the Marta 8 years ago, I would say don't suffer too much from the things that are not perfect, that don't go 100% well. Just do it right. Don't do it perfect. The usual thing of better done than perfect. And you should actually do more things instead of less things and perfect. This is what I would do. And of course, don't let your stamina go away don't pay too much attention to the people who don't deserve too much attention. Don't focus too much on technical aspects when actually the main result is going to come from human aspects. Study the numbers, of course. If I had had the opportunity 8 years ago of studying a bit more of finance, that's what I would have done. At the time, it was difficult because there was really no time to do everything. I had to start from somewhere. But maybe I would tell myself, well, at night or in your spare time, that was not a lot, but still, just read about accountancy and finance and things that have to do with numbers, because that would have helped me a lot at the beginning. It's easier now, not too easy, but easier now. And but at the beginning was a bit difficult.
Wow, so much learning. Thank you. And when you need to like have a moment and you need to focus, even that difficult times, do you have a quote, a word for you to tell yourself?
Well, first of all, I think that to be able to have a moment for yourself is important. And that moment, in my case, is what I call an active rest. An active rest means doing some physical activity. In my particular case, I'm talking about doing Pilates, but it can be do anything. Just you can, well, now going to a swimming pool is probably not that easy, but each of us will probably have some kind of physical activity that they like, or at least they don't dislike too much. And that is probably the moment where you can think and focus on yourself, because actually it's only when you can count on the best version of yourself that you can treat people right, and that you can actually give it back to the other ones around you. Is don't give the worst version of yourself to others, give the best version of yourself to others. So take care of yourself, do some physical activity, think, stay calm, and keep it simple.
Wow, what the best way to end this show. So have a moment of yourself to be the best of yourself for you and for the others. Okay? There's no better time to be a hero to your family, to your coworkers, to your friends, to your community. Thanks so much, Marta, for
You're
making
welcome.
the time to share your wisdom with us, with our community. And thank you to our community for being on that side. We keep you, bring you the best of the best to help you during scaling up and wartime. Stay safe, stay strong. Bye.